You're watching NASA TV.
Good morning from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to round 2 of this spacewalk as we join it right inside the Quest airlock live.
Space to ground 1 for the airlock. You are go for MEDOX changeout in step 16.
Okay, I will pick up the step 16, and in 2.120, we will use a serial number 9 for aft ETA, and serial number 1034 for forward ETA.
And each of those are good numbers.
EV1, Frank Rubio in the red stripes, will egress the airlock first, followed by EV2, Josh Cassada in the white stripes. EV1 will retrieve a crew lock bag, and then both crew members will translate out to a location on the truss to set up their tethers. EV1 will retrieve a second bag left outside after the last EVA, bundle it to his crew lock bag, and translate out to the P4 worksite. Both bags will be stowed at that worksite. The cable bag gets stowed on the electronics platform, and the crew lock bag gets stowed on the left mod kit strut. EV1 will retrieve a handling aid, known as a scoop, and install that on the mounting bracket before heading back down to the cable bag to retrieve the iROSA cables. EV1 will work to pre-position these cables, one bundle on the right side and one on the left in preparation for later connection. Meanwhile, EV2 will head to the iROSA carrier to prepare the lower iROSA for removal. EV2 will release 2 anti-rotation devices from the carrier. These devices secure the primary restraint bolts during the high vibration loads seen during launch. EV2 will then translate to the zenith side to access 2 sets of bolts on the boom end of the iROSA. The first 2 bolts will allow the boom deployment system rollers to be moved into place, later helping the arrays during deployment. The second 2 bolts will release 2 of the 4 mechanisms holding the iROSA in its rolled-up configuration. EV2 will translate off the carrier and over to where the robotic arm is waiting. On the last EVA, a foot restraint was installed on the end of the robotic arm. EV2 will use that same foot restraint to fly over to the lower iROSA and remove it from the carrier. The foot restraint provides a stable platform to allow the iROSA to be carried by a crew member to the mod kit installation location. Once complete at the mod kit, EV1 translates inboard and continues preparing the iROSA for removal from the carrier. EV1 will then partially release the primary restraint bolts and install the first of 2 scoops onto the iROSA. EV2 will arrive on the robotic arm at the iROSA release position, and both crew members will work together to release the final bolt holding iROSA to the carrier, install a second scoop, and then lift iROSA off of the carrier. After several maneuvers on the robotic arm, EV2 will arrive at the mod kit worksite. During these maneuvers, EV1 will reconfigure EV2's safety tether and meet EV2 out at the mod kit. Both crew will work together to install the iROSA onto the mounting bracket. The crew will remove the scoops, and EV2 will move into position to release the final bolt holding the iROSA in its folded position. Once released, EV1 will hold iROSA closed while EV2 egresses the foot restraint and gets into position. Both crew will then work together to unfold iROSA and secure the right side onto the mounting bracket. Once secure, EV2 will drive 2 hinge bolts that hold the iROSA in the unfolded position and move away from the iROSA to reconfigure their safety tethers. EV1 will then drive 8 bolts to fully secure the iROSA to the mounting bracket. Both crew will then work to electrically connect the new iROSA to the ISS power system using the cables that EV1 positioned earlier. They'll first attach 4 connectors to iROSA, then move to either side of the legacy array to disconnect the old array and connect a Y cable that allows power to flow from both the new iROSA and the legacy array. At this point, EV1 will move to a deployment viewing position, and EV2 will release the final 2 bolts restraining iROSA in the undeployed position. iROSA will deploy over the next 6 to 10 minutes, and once complete, EV2 will release 2 bolts that allow the iROSA blankets to become tensioned. The crew will begin working to clean up their bags at this worksite, with EV1 bringing the 2 bags back inboard. EV2 will remove the foot restraint from the robotic arm and return it to its stowage location. Both crew will then head to the carrier and perform some final reconfiguration of the upper iROSA stowage beams, securing them in place for final disposal of the carrier. The crew will then retrieve the remaining bags and will translate back to the airlock to clean up their tethers, ingress, and begin repressing the airlock.
Now, the goal of today is to install a new iROSA, one of those roll-out solar arrays, and this is part of an ongoing plan that's been stretched over the last couple of years that we're starting to get to the final stages of. So in this graphic you can see 3B, 1A, 2A, 4B. Each one of those number and letter combinations correspond to a power channel. We have 8 power channels supported by the pairs of solar arrays on board the International Space Station. Everything in blue, we've already installed an array. And so you can see on the right side those smaller arrays that are kind of canted up at an angle over 4B and 2B. That shows you how these look once they're installed and completely unfurled. They cover a small amount of the legacy arrays, but once everything is installed, once all 6 iROSAs have been completely installed, we're going to be increasing the power capability, the power generation capability on board the space station by about 30%. And these are brand new arrays, so they'll be able to last throughout the remainder of the lifetime of the International Space Station, as we're looking at continuing to have this orbiting laboratory until at least 20. Spacesuit, as you are just constantly fighting against that pressure. But as they're at a lower pressure, they're also breathing a 100% oxygen atmosphere, essentially, when they're in those suits. That way, you can operate at a lower pressure, but you're still getting the oxygen that you need. And we operate on a lot of the same restrictions as anybody who's ever gone scuba diving. As you go deeper and deeper into the water, you're in a higher and higher pressure environment. And then as you come back to the surface, you need to take your time as you do it. Or you can suffer what's known as decompression sickness. And all that really will be different gases. Primary one we look for is nitrogen. When it's in your blood and in tissues in your body, it's at kind of an ambient pressure, or it's at an equal pressure with your ambient surroundings. But if you start to depressurize quickly, the pressure in those gases in your veins, in your tissues, will be higher than the pressure around it, and that can form bubbles. And if those bubbles start to form, they can cause problems. One of the most common ones is, as it's starting to happen, is you'll start to get joint pain, things like that, but it can eventually cause some pretty serious issues with your nervous system. And so that's why we have to be very careful, very deliberate, and to prepare them for that lower pressure environment, we do what's called a pre-breathe. A long time ago, we used to have the astronauts actually camp out, have them operate in that pure oxygen environment. And so that's all done. We're now in the steps getting ready for depress. The team here in Mission Control is actually about to do a go, no-go for depress. Now, depress just referring to depressurization. That's us taking them into the crew lock section, closing the hatch, and then removing all of the atmosphere in there and bringing it down to a vacuum. So again, a vacuum is just an absence of stuff. In this case, an absence of atmosphere. And we need to get the crew lock section down as close to vacuum as possible. During launch and all of the movement operations, they'll remove those beams, and then they'll release the actual array itself from iROSA. And then after that, flying on the end of the robotic arm, Josh Cassada is going to get moved over to that work site, bringing the array with him. And then once they're there, they'll get into the actual installation steps, and that'll involve, as we saw through some of those graphics, actually unfolding the array into its configuration where it could be installed. First thing they'll do is essentially get it soft captured. It'll slide into and now we see Koichi Wakata and Nicole Mann guiding Josh Cassada into that crew lock section of the Quest airlock. Safer attached, all the different equipment tethers from his backpack to his helmet, all engaged. And so they're going to put him in his suit, and then you can see his service and cooling umbilical, that white hose that's kind of looping outside of the left part. That'll get moved in as well. And then we'll start to hear the crew step through some of the actual depressurization of the airlock. And that's done using essentially two different means. We have to head out to the actual site where we're going to be installing the iROSA today and start routing some of the cables. And so he's got, it's essentially two cables, but they're going to be functioning as two different Y connectors. So one end of the cables is split into two pieces. One end goes into the new iROSA once it's there, the other into a connection for the existing solar array, and then those get plugged in to the 4A power channel. And so by installing all these, once the iROSA is in place, we're essentially going to be integrating the iROSA and the existing array into the same power channel. 36 minutes into today's spacewalk, both spacewalkers moving out to their first major task. EV1 Frank Rubio heading out to the work site. He just got some cautions read from the ground IV Nick Hague, essentially just reminding him not to make any sudden movements and part a lot of loads into what's called the mass canister, the mod kit. This is the hardware that's installed to attach the new rollout solar array to position it over the existing one. He's heading out there with a cable bag that has some cables in it, and he's going to pre-deploy some of those.
This is a little bit of an issue coming out here. You sure you want me to go more zenith? With my fairlead?
Yeah, Josh, you've got the best eyes on in the situation there. These fairleads were intended to keep separation, but if you don't think it's necessary, you don't have to do it.
Okay, sounds good. Frank, if you need it on the TFR, it'll be there for you, but okay, I'm not seeing the need. All right, copy.
So in this view, we can see, and we were just hearing Josh Cassada, he's EV2.
So Josh, your next task is going to be putting an adjustable equipment tether on the stanchion alpha for the beam stow task that's going to happen later.
Beams running perpendicular over the top of the iROSAs that are there to hold them in place. Obviously, we need to release those before we can slide the iROSA out and begin carrying it over to the work site. So he's going to first release those anti-rotation devices and then step into that beam release. He's going to be joined in that beam release activity once Frank Rubio has completed routing those initial cables. Again, those cables that Frank Rubio's routing, he's got essentially two, but there are a couple of cables bundled together. They're going to be Y connectors with one end with 2 points, one going into the new solar array, one connecting to the legacy SID. And to give you an idea, we planned these spacewalks out to the point where we know how many turns that we're expecting them to have to do, and then giving them very precise instructions on just how much torque and things of that nature.
Take that scoop over to the mounting bracket. You're going to install it at that 45-degree angle as it points inboard to the station. You'll want to confirm that's locked before you release the red.
Yep.
And then throughout, you might also hear reference to a scoop. That's another tool that the crew members have access to. They're essentially equipment aids for handling things. They're handles that they can attach to different. And so this view from Frank Rubio's helmet camera is, again, he's working to route some of those cables. These are going to be the power connection cables that's going to integrate the newly deployed iROSA into the 4A power channel on board the station. And so he's getting these into essentially their initial connection point. He's going to tie them down using some wire ties and some other harnesses to secure these so they're not just kind of floating around freely, making sure he's leaving enough slack for the eventual connection themselves. These won't get connected to the arrays themselves until we're in an eclipse. Being out of direct sunlight is the primary inhibit for making sure that the solar arrays aren't generating electricity and we're not plugging into something actively generating. So at some point we will have to wait for an eclipse. We are timed to hopefully hit that pretty much on the money as we plan out all of the other activities, as this is now the second one of these installs that this pair of crew members has done, completing their last one in just a little over 7.
Pocket Caddy, it's your call.
It's got to be one of those two, is that right?
Yeah, copy. That's your two choices.
Got it.
So he's going to have two of these.
On the removal, there's too much in the trash bag, so I'll have to put it on the socket caddy.
That's good news. And so, Josh, you're going to translate over to the Charlie 12 bolt, and that's near stanchion Alpha.
Copy that. I think it seems like you're making pretty good time over there. Going on? I was, and then my safety. And like after I have one wire tied down with 3 turns, can I release my rack cable?
And Koichi, we copy. We think we'll need to get...
and Frank, you need to have 2 wire ties with 3 twists holding down the cable to...
Get removed, and then after that, we'll be able to start actually relocating this iROSA over to its ultimate install site. In order to do that, Josh Cassada is going to get into a foot restraint on the robotic arm.
Copy, Josh. That's a good bolt. So we're going to translate over to C11, which is stanchion Delta.
Okay. And I see why we only got 4. If you guys could see it in the HECA, I'm happy with this config. It definitely is not going anywhere.
No, we're happy.
There?
Yeah, Josh, we're happy with the config. We can't see it. The HECA, just for your essay, is got a face full of iROSA.
Got it. What happened is the bolt, the block is rotated counterclockwise, and when I went to drive it back in, it just catches on it is caught on the lip of the C12. It is definitely in there and not going anywhere.
And copy, and we can see it in your HECA.
And right now, Frank Rubio making his way over to join Josh Cassada at this FSE where the solar array is currently stowed. Cassada working to remove that second anti-rotation device, and then once that's out, he'll be done with that task. He'll swap out one of the sockets on his pistol grip tool before they get ready to remove the support beams. All right, now this view, we see both of our spacewalkers for today.
I got my 2-inch on here, Frank and Nick. Okay, copy.
Frank Rubio on the right in the suit with red stripes.
You're no longer translating. I am no longer translating. Awesome.
Josh Cassada on the left.
Josh, you're going to head over to stanchion Charlie.
Working right now to rotate 2 support beams that are currently holding the solar array in place.
Is passed with the pit pin in the proper location. Good pull test.
And copy, Frank. That's a good pull test and tip pins in on Charlie 2. You're also going to retrieve the rest and adjustable from the trash bag and hook that on to the closest beam handrail stanchion.
And so they're going to be working in tandem. They're going to go to 4 different spots. Each spot has 2 bolts that are holding these beams in place. Using their pistol grip tools, they're going to release these bolts, eventually rotating these beams about. One hour, 26 minutes into today's spacewalk. Station just about to fly over the very southern tip of South Africa. Both spacewalkers now working in tandem to release these support beams holding the iROSA in place.
Sorry, you put a BRT down? No.
And at this point, 3 of the 4 bolts holding one of the support arms, support beams have been released. Frank Rubio working on the 4th one. Josh Cassada is going to move over to a different point on the FSE to help with the actual rotation.
Okay. Ready for motion.
Here comes the motion. 3, 2, 1.
And we can see right in the center there, the robotic arm starting to move. You can see jutting out of the right side, that's the foot restraint that Cassada is going to be locking into. And again, GCA just down stands for ground controlled assist. That's the term that we're just going to be using as the spacewalkers are giving any location guidance to the team inside for moving the arm.
You could probably just like yeah, so that's what I have this thing on the left. I'm going to take it off, my DOT off, and then go over here, see if you agree with this. Yep, you just go in between the 2. Perfect. Now you're free. And over here. Thanks. Yep. I need one of those backup cameras on this. I am go for the maneuver to the truss back off position.
Okay, we copy that. And this is maneuver, not GCA, to the published truss back-off position, which is body out or station forward in 1 meter. Are you ready?
D2's ready.
The motion. 3, 2, 1, arms in motion.
I see good motion.
See?
EV2 is set TCV to 2.5.
Copy, Josh. 2.5.
Centimeters to go.
Copy.
Okay, here comes the motion in 3, 2, 1, arms in motion.
I see good motion.
Copy.
And Josh.
I had a good pull test on both sockets. and the install.
Copy all, Josh. Good socket swap. If you can cycle your WVS for us, we're trying to get that to lock back up to help Koichi with some camera views.
Copy, it's on now.
Okay, thanks for that, Josh. We'll look at it and let you know if we need anything else. And Frank, I see you moving over to stanchion Alpha towards C12.
Affirmative. See good motion.
Okay, good motion. Another meter to go.
Copy.
So looking over the shoulder of Josh Cassada as he moves in, iROSA right in the center of his view. Frank Rubio appearing upside down in the top right, getting that final bolt.
Copy.
Or rather that C12 bolt all the way out. He's then going to move over to get C11 after Josh is fully in position and ready to grapple with iROSA.
10 meters to go.
Copy. And I ended up with 55 turns. Stand by. Oh, correction. Sorry about that. Continue.
Continue.
Continue another 10 centimeters.
Another 10 centimeters.
Ramp out in 3. I think we ramped out.
Ramp out.
It's released. It's pulling me forward. Yes. Okay. And obviously I can't tell on the side that's opposite the tower. It does seem like we're shifted that way. So I'm keeping you, well, I can see it. Clear on this side, and we have about an inch, so I think you're clear on the other side. I agree. Looks like we're clear all around. Continue.
We continue.
All right, Josh, in about 10 more degrees, I'm going to be letting go. Okay.
Okay, Josh, position hold, and we're going to set up a JOCAS for outboard JOCAS.
Copy.
Josh and Frank, we're ready for the outboard JOCAS. This is a 3-minute maneuver, and we'll move Josh body left 8 meters and body out about 3 meters. And Josh, iROSA and FRGS power clearance will be 73 centimeters. So please keep down. And if you're ready, we will start the maneuver.
Understand we're pitching down 90 degrees, and I'm going to be ready for your countdown. Sounds great.
Okay, here comes the motion in 3, 2, 1, arms in motion.
See good motion? Where's that?
Can kind of come in and out as he's getting flown over. But he's got iROSA in his hands.
Which will place you under the IEA, and this is a 2-minute JOCAS, and we'll move you body out about 5.5 meters and body left about 1 meter. And again, this is a translational JOCAS, so the motion will be faster than the pitch motion. Ready for the motion?
Okay, copy. Towards my back, about a little over 5, and towards my left, 1.5 meters. I do not have the IEA in sight. I am ready for the maneuver.
Okay, here comes the motion in 3, 2, 1, starting the motion. Okay, Josh, we are ramping out.
Okay. Copy that, thank you.
Okay, Josh and Frank, we are ready for the manual maneuver to the iROSA install position. This is per your GCA, Frank, to the published position, which is body left 2.2 meters. Are you ready?
Okay, I am ready. Yeah, and you have Carissa, just to verify, this is a GCA to publish, correct?
You published, which is body left 2.2 meters for Josh.
Okay, you have a go.
Okay, here comes the motion in 3, 2, 1, arms in motion.
See motion, good motion.
Okay, good motion.
So our spacewalker is working in tandem again. Right now, Josh Cassada working to remove that scoop. That was just that temporary handling aid that he had on iROSA.
I'm trying. Just watch your helmet on the... Yep, thank you. Okay, ready? Through the soft. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Go nice and slow. It looks like those go down pretty easily. Is that right? At least that one did. Yeah. Okay. Your helmet is pushing on the iROSA. I'm sorry. So why don't we pull that one all the way full out and let it recapture? What do you think? Yep. We have 18 to 20 turns.
Good feedback.
And we're on R6. All right. Third turn.
All right, so Josh Cassada right now releasing the final hinge restraint. Once this is released, we'll be able to start unfolding the iROSA array. So All right, so again, the robotic arm with Josh Cassada at the end backed away from the iROSA and moved over to the station structure itself, and now he'll be able to egress or get out of that foot restraint.
Yes, we do. I'd like you to get it stowed in low profile.
Special tool called the AMS knob. It's essentially a screwdriver that you can operate by holding it in the palm of your hand. And this way we're going to make sure we're not imparting too much torque on the final install of these bolts. And these hinge bolts are what's going to securely hold the array in place once it's unfolded.
And Josh, big picture, as the arm stretches away, you'll keep an eye on your safety tether and eventually put a fair lead on the right lower strut handrail.
Okay. I go there now, if that's okay, and then we'll work on the arm ops. Looks like I got the thing. There it is.
Our robotics lead, she's been the one controlling the arm so far today, while Koichi takes the comm duties, speaking directly to Josh Cassada and Frank Rubio outside. Meanwhile, they're still perched right at the iROSA's install point. We're waiting for...
10 meters to go.
We're ready. Do we have a go to unfold?
You have a go.
And there we see iROSA starting to unfold. So this whole time, Frank Rubio's been keeping a hand on it, as once that last bolt, that R6 bolt, was released, it was able to unfold. So the slow unfolding process now underway.
Well, it's going to work. You're okay? Okay, that's good.
Once we get it completely unfolded,
so before you guys go too far, we'll do glove, hap check, and gauntlet check on everybody.
Torque than these bolts are designed for. So after he drives them in, he's going to drive them back about one turn and then use that AMS knob to hand tighten these bolts. And these are just what's going to ensure that iROSA stays in this unfolded position.
We actually have like more of a turn there on P9 if you see it.
Yep, we see that in HECA, Josh, and the black lines are a rough guide. It's the hard stop that is what counts. With that, we show all four connections are good for you. If you wanted to double check that the two that we did not touch on the panel, that those saw tabs on the connectors are horizontal.
Nick, how long till that next eclipse?
Yeah, we got a little over 35 minutes, Josh.
Nick, how long till that next eclipse?
Yeah, we got a little over 35 minutes, Josh.
If you're wondering what all the different multicolored dots are, that is what you're looking at. They've become very apparent anytime we're looking at something very dark at nighttime, but will start to get washed out here as the sun comes up.
counterclockwise.
Second bolt driving. Once it's released, we'll start to see the deploy.
That's it. Hold on. Keep it in motion.
Copy, we see the release and deployment.
Second bolt release. iROSA now deploying. We're going to see, and again, there's no mechanism to make this unfurl. It's doing it all with the stored energy of the array itself. And the white sections you see on either side, so those are the booms, those are going to unfurl and tend to curl up, similar to, as we were talking about, if you were to take a straw, cut it lengthwise, roll it up, and then just let it go, it would naturally just try to curve back into that circular structure. And that's what those booms are going to be doing. There's a series of magnets the crew's also going to be keeping an eye on.
Body back about 3 or 4 degrees that help our view.
Okay.
That's much better, thank you. A little bit further would be even perfect.
Okay.
And Frank, we can just barely make out those magnets. I think all 5 of them have clicked closed at this point.
I've got 4 and there are 5. All 5 are clicked.
Okay, copy.
Good job, Josh. Nicely done. Finally run that microwave we've been wanting to run. Nick, do you know where we are over the planet?
Yeah, you're just south of Alaska, getting ready to go do a pass down the west coast.
Awesome. Morning.
You might even be over Houston by the time the deployment finishes.
That's pretty cool.
They essentially snap together into that circular structure, and then they have magnets that are helping to help them maintain that structure once they snap in.
Okay, guys, we have confirmed we've got a good deployment on iROSA. So, Josh, you're go to move into position to do the tensioner bolts R11 and 12.
Alpha 1, counterclockwise to start and turn.
Copy. 5 to 6 turns. It should pop out when fully released. Wait for any kind of motion to damp out before imparting loads. We can't simultaneously translate, and that's it.
Copy that. Okay, and I am over at Alpha.
Okay, Frank. So you're going to loosen the adjustable equipment tether from the beam so that you've got some play with the beam, and then position it into the final stowage location.
Meanwhile, Josh Cassada is doing some cleanup work on the robotic arm.
I see good motion.
We're hearing the voice now of Koichi Wakata, who's at the mobile workstation inside the station's Destiny laboratory right next to
50 centimeters to go.
Right next to NASA astronaut Nicole Mann, who's at the controls.
Okay, Josh, I see you arriving at the airlock. So you're going to stow the crew lock bag inside. Check that. It's a cable bag. It's a cable bag.
Cable bag on. Translator back.
Copy, Frank. I see you heading back in.
Copy that. Thanks, Josh. No problem.
And then Frank Rubio's final job for cleanup is grabbing some of these adjustable equipment tethers, as they're working with.
Nice work, Josh. I see you translating back in.
As they're working with any equipment on board, they try to keep it tethered to them, make sure we don't have tools or any other items floating away during a spacewalk.